Tadabbur, I want to just translate it here. It may not be the usage everywhere, as reflection and connection. Reflection and connection. And it's important, as I've said before, and just elaborate a little bit more here, to distinguish between this process of reflection of tadabbur compared to the process of tafsir. And part of the reason why we had said this before and raised it before is because people may have a fear of getting involved in the process of tadabbur, a fear of saying anything about the Qur'an that they haven't read in a book. And that fear is not so bad. A stronger fear, a more problematic fear, is a fear of thinking anything about the Qur'an without having read it in a book. And certainly if the point is that I should not go and tell people the Qur'an means this and this meaning is in the Qur'an, that fear is a very, very valid and very important one. And this is where we have such sayings from our Salaf, such as Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, who said, which sky would give me shelter and which earth would carry me if I were to speak about the Qur'an according to my own opinion. This is the thing that we have to be afraid of, that saying the Qur'an means this or this meaning is in the Qur'an. But what we are not needing here is to do tafsir. There is something which we are required to do because the Qur'an has told us to do it. أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ أَمْ عَلَى قُلُوبٍ أَقْفَالُهَا. Do they not ponder upon the Qur'an, or are there locks upon the hearts? And in another verse, and here you can see more clearly that the reference is being, I will say, even to the unbelievers, even to those who are critics of the Qur'an, that they should ponder on it. أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ. Do they not ponder upon the Qur'an? وَلَوْ كَانَ مِنْ عِنْدِ غَيْرِ اللَّهِ لَوَجَدُوا فِيهِ اخْتِلَافًا كَثِيرًا. If it had been from any other than Allah, they would have found much contradiction therein. So pondering upon the Qur'an is something that we are invited to do. We don't have any verses, أَفَلَا يُفَسِّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ, because tafsir is a specialist activity. Tafsir is telling us, interpreting the words, laying out the meanings, making those meanings clear. Tadabbur is something that follows from understanding the basic meaning. So we do find in the books of tafsir, you will find some things that we could also class as part of tadabbur. But what does tadabbur mean for us? Rather than saying what the Qur'an means, tadabbur is, what does the Qur'an, what does this verse mean for me and to me? Not an individualistic meaning, no, but the application in each of our lives. So alhamdulillah, for example, we have seen how each of us can think about things that we are giving hamd for. And as the brother has said, in each prayer you could think, focus in on one particular thing that you are giving hamd and shukr for on that occasion. This doesn't change the meaning of alhamdulillah in any way, but it changes just what you're bringing to the verse at that moment, what you're taking from it in that moment, how you're applying it to your life. This is where we all need to be. In order to do that, yes, we need to benefit from tafsir. We need to benefit from books of tafsir. We need to read the books of tafsir. We need to listen to scholars of tafsir. This is in order for us to not make a mistake in the meanings of the book. And where we must draw the line is where we tell other people about the Qur'an without knowing what we are talking about. But we have to be ready to engage with the Qur'an and not leave it at a distance from ourselves. And unfortunately, there's even some Muslims themselves, even some people who kind of preach this idea that as ordinary Muslims we're not entitled to read the Qur'an or to read tafsir of the Qur'an. Anything that places a barrier between us and the Qur'an must surely be wrong. Instead, we must encourage people and teach people the tools, how to become literate, how to read and how to understand and reflect upon the Qur'an. So reflection is one thing, connection is the other. Now connection, what I mean to say here is that when we recite, we are understanding the meanings. But I want to say also, we understand the meanings in order to recite. And this is where I think this point has been lost in a lot of the, the way that the Qur'an is being talked about and being experienced nowadays. And one of the reasons I know this is because just this year, I was involved in making a film, which is called Solomon and the Queen. This film is really it's a Quranic storytelling film. We kind of explained it in this way. But what we meant by Quranic storytelling is that the Qur'an is telling the story or the narrative or the history of Sulaiman alayhi salam, his encounters with the ants and with the hoopoe, the hudhud, and with the Queen of Sheba. And this story is found in Surah Al-Naml. And this film is mostly just recitation from Surah Al-Naml. It's done by a very renowned and prominent, masterful Egyptian Qari called Hajjaj al-Hindawi. And in the middle, in between, there is some commentary from myself, which is somewhere between tafsir and tadabbur. To be honest, it's a kind of, it has tafsir content behind it, but I didn't want to be getting into. Tafsir can often be explaining each and every word and its meaning and how they are put together and the implications of those. And that would not have been suitable for this kind of film. But the aim of the film, or one of the main aims, was when it comes to Muslims, to promote the recitation of the Qur'an, to get them to listen to recitation and to enjoy recitation. And the purpose of the commentary was really just to make it easier for people to digest, sort of 45 minutes long of recitation. So we broke it up into smaller chunks. We put some commentary in between. We chose some kind of scenic backgrounds here and there. A lot of it is at Glasgow University. You guys would recognize the background. And that was all for the Qur'an. Some people, when they saw the film or they saw part of it, they said, "MashaAllah, brother, very nice, but couldn't we do without that Qari? Couldn't we just have more of you and your commentary?" Not that it was so great, but they just sort of felt, I'm used to listening to talk about the Qur'an, but they won't say it in so many words, don't feel so motivated to listen to the Qur'an itself. And some people said, this particular style of recitation is slower, that's the nature of it, and I think it's more fitting for the purpose of tadabbur, to recite slowly, and it involves some repetition and going back, and some people are not used to that, and that's okay. But what I would want from this film is that people are able to come to appreciate that more, and to spend more time with the actual parts of Qur'an, because the nature of the commentary that I did, it was very much linked to the recitation that was going on. If you were to put those bits of commentary together and put into one bit, it would not make sense, because it was all within the flow of the recitation. But what I've found is, this kind of comment even came from some people who I really thought would get it, and some people who are involved in promoting the Qur'an and the message of Islam. But I very much stand by our principle here, which is that connecting to the Qur'an means connecting to the recitation of the Qur'an, amongst other things. But this is the nature of the Qur'an. It is a recited book. That is pretty much the meaning of the word Qur'an. It is something which is recited. So that is, that's what we do in our prayers. It's what we do as a form of worship and remembrance. But what has happened is that people have become distanced from that for all sorts of different reasons. And let's not make it about our individual fault for it, but even as a community, as a society, we have maybe turned away from emphasizing this, of celebrating this, of promoting this. How many schools do we have in this country for teaching the masterful, melodic and creative and powerful and inspiring Qur'an recitation? There might be some. In fact, I probably can think of one, two, but I'm not so familiar of it. We do have those who are teaching how to read the Qur'an aloud. We have lots of that. We have got memorization of the Qur'an. There is, alhamdulillah, still lots of that. But making the Qur'an something which people are inspired by, this is lacking. And of course, promoting the meanings and tafsir of the Qur'an, that has also got a lot left to be desired.